Riddle me this. What grows bigger the more you contract it? Can you guess? It's debt. What is debt? And what role does it play in the success of your business and your life? I'm Ivana Taylor. I'm the publisher of DIYmarketers.com and the host of Bizapalooza Chat. And today we're going to talk about how to get out of debt. Now, money and our relationship with money is something we don't typically like to talk about, unless it's how to make more of it. But our level of debt as individuals, and especially as small business owners, is a critical player in the profit equation. So to come up with conversations around debt, I'm joined by our guest, Jim Katzman. He's the manager at Largo Financial Services, where he helps entrepreneurs shave off years of debt, eliminate thousands of dollars of interest, and increase the lifestyles and help them save for a secure retirement. Jim, thanks for being here and welcome to Bizapalooza Chat.
Hi there. It's good to be here again.
I am so glad that you're here. You know, this is one of these conversations that nobody likes to have. So before we get into the whole thing, it's always a good idea to sort of kind of set the stage and define what we're talking about. Could you please define debt for our conversation today?
Right. Debt is anything that you owe money for on a continuing basis, be like a mortgage, car, student loans, that kind of thing. Sometimes doing installment loans on that's generally what you think of debt. You know, you have your utility bills and that stuff, but those are givens. But the things that you could conceivably have control over would be like the mortgage, car loans, and that kind of thing.
So why do people have large amounts of personal and business debt? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It could be good. You could say you need some debt. Like if you're in a business, you invest. So you go into some debt to take loans out to invest in your business and everything. So there is that good debt. Bad debt is when you spend more than what you have, and this is more again on a personal side, but you can do it as well on business. You spend more than what you have and dig yourself in deeper, and you wind up getting to the point where, oh well, we can make minimum payments and try to keep our head above water. But if you ever crunch the numbers, minimum payments means that you're going to be paying it for a credit card for 20 plus years. And maybe forever, if depending on how that goes. So that's an example of bad debt, and you also can't use that kind of debt to even get anything back as far as an income tax credit goes or deduction.
Why, Jim? Why do we put ourselves in the circumstance? What do you think is behind our, propensity to get into debt?
People just sometimes you don't have a good grasp of wants and needs. Their eyes are bigger than their wallets, and so you say, well, this is something I always wanted. We can handle this, and next thing you know, it's like how they say you put the frog in water and you slowly turn up the temperature and you don't realize it. Whereas if you jumped into boiling water, you'd know right away. So it's a matter of you get acclimated to it. And next thing you know, it becomes a way of life and you don't know any other alternative.
Yikes. I mean, so clearly debt is not a good thing. I love that. Our eyes are bigger than our wallets.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Quotable right there. How can you break free of debt and save money for the future? I've gotten myself into debt.
Mm-hmm.
I am now repenting. Now, give me like 3, 5, 7 steps to get myself out of this.
Yeah. Step number 1, you have to have a good grasp of your spending. So that's where it comes in handy to take it's a simple sheet of paper, and you just log your expenses, where you're spending and what you're spending it on. And again, that could be your eye opener. Say, okay, well, I can spend less here and do this that way. And also maybe there's places, you know, people might be making minimum payments on credit cards and that sort of thing, whereas they might be able to make bigger payments in some place, retire some of the smaller debt first. And as you retire smaller debt, that frees up money to apply to bigger debt, and it kind of feeds on. You go for the low hanging fruit. You know, that's one approach. If you're putting $100 a month on a credit card, well, maybe if you get that paid off, that frees up that $100 and you can
So
apply
wait a minute.
it
So
to your other debt.
step one,
Make a list.
make a list and track all your expenses.
Right.
Was there a step 2 in there?
Well, actually, a good step 2 is a good mindset change, because now you have to be accepting of the fact that, hey, you know, we can do something different. If you look at the numbers and you say, well, this is all essential. We need to have, you know, 5 nights out a week eating or something like that, you know. So it could be, you know, like a mindset, you know, free up some money here, some there. So your first step is understanding where your money is going to, and maybe you have a voila moment saying, oh, I didn't realize I'm spending this on that. So it's not changing our lifestyle as much as knowing that maybe we could do a little bit of modification, and a little bit of modification can get you on the first step to a longer, you know, a good step along the way.
Got it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about visualizing some of this stuff. You know, do you have any tips on how you can maybe get a good picture of where your money is going? We just talked about that, so never mind that.
Yeah.
Forget that. What are some common tax myths that we should just get over?
Let me give you the biggest one. And this has been a pain for years, and this is actually going to be changing based on how the laws have just been passed. But the biggest tax myth is that we need a mortgage because we need to have that tax deduction, and you know, that's what we live for, that tax deduction. Our example is, let's say, why don't you give me $100? Fine. I'm going to give you 20. How do you like that deal? What? That sounds lousy. Well, that's exactly what you're doing. You're paying your lender $100, and the $20 is your tax deduction. The banks and the government have pounded it and made it acceptable through the years for us to live for that tax deduction. So when April rolls around, here we go. There's your deduction. Meanwhile, you're giving the government interest-free loans and what have you. Well, there's a couple things that are about to change or have changed, and you're going to see the effect. The standard deduction for each person has, as of this year, to be filed in April, is gone up. It's gone up to the point that it's going to eliminate a lot of mortgage deductions. You aren't going to be able to claim enough interest on your mortgage to use it as a deduction. So all this stuff you've been saying, I need a big tax deduction. Well, guess what? You're not going to have. So that's one thing, and that's a big thing. But about 2 months ago, I'll say, at our Chamber of Commerce meeting, we had the Comptroller of Maryland come in, and he said people are in for a rude awakening come April for their federal taxes, because they're under the new Tax Cut Job Act, Tax Cut Act, whatever the proper name of it is. They, guess what? Your pay has gone up every week that you're going home. So that's good. But guess what? If you haven't adjusted your W-2 and consulted your accountant along the way, you're in for a rude awakening come April, because you might not, you're going to have a lower return and maybe not even a refund on the return, and that has, a different effect. So people are going to file their taxes, and then when it comes to get their papers, they're going to find out, wait a minute, where's the money? Well, guess what? You've had it during the year, and this mortgage you're carrying, well, that didn't do you a darn bit of good. So that would be a myth that's going to come to reality based on what we've been told, and I'll take the word for the Comptroller of Maryland as a good source.
Okay, so let's talk about some tips, right? Because we got a bunch of business owners and entrepreneurs here, and who has not had this problem? What are some bootstrapping strategies that you can use to sort of save some money when you don't have any additional income?
If you're talking about a person, of course, the one obvious answer is to go and get a second job and that kind of thing. That's if you're open to working yourself to death, and on that kind of thing. That's a possibility. The other part is just adjusting what your expenses are. Just get again, we're going back to getting a good grasp on your expenses. There's two ways to lower your debt. It's either to earn more or spend less. That's what it comes down to. So, if you want to try to earn more and get a second job, and some people have trouble finding a first job, but there's that possibility. But the easier way is to just getting a grasp of, okay, maybe this is a nice to have thing. Maybe this bright shiny object is bright and shiny, but we can get by with something else. We don't have to be jumping off to the latest thing. And don't be thinking, well, I have to keep up with the Joneses. Maybe the Joneses actually can't afford to do what they're doing either. So just look at what your needs and wants are and go accordingly. That's
smart advice. Jim, what do you sort of know for sure when it comes to debt?
Depending on what the debt is, you can know for sure it's not going to, if you don't do anything different, it's not going to end soon. So it's like that definition of insanity: do the same thing over and over again, and there you go. So you have to break the cycle. So if you're in debt, well, you got here doing something. Well, you have to do something different in order to start changing the course and getting yourself out of it. So there has to be a change of some type. And it's hard to be generally prescriptive because every person is different. So you can't take a broad stroke and say, well, we all need to do this. Well, maybe some people are able to do this and not. So that's why it's important for each person to sit down individually with an advisor or your accountant or what have you. But just watching TV and say, oh, so-and-so said do this, so that must be right. That's never a good idea.
Let's talk about something positive.
Well, that'd be nice.
Right? Because I was just kind of thinking, I'm sort of feeling down.
Yeah, well, I have that ability. Yeah.
No, it's just this conversation. The idea of debt, it just is like so icky. However, I wanted to talk the opposite side, which is what are the biggest things you or your family might notice about your life once you are debt free?
Do you have less conversations and quarrels about money? That tends to be the biggest cause of marital strife and what have you. So if you can go a day and not think about, oh, well, we have to not do this particular little thing because we have to put this penny aside and everything, just, you have peace of mind. And that's the main thing about getting out of debt, getting everything else paid off. It's the peace of mind factor. And some things, that's the kind of thing you actually can't put a price on.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you I'll never forget the month after we paid off our house, it felt like we won the lottery.
Yeah.
because we were putting a lot of money towards the house and we paid ours off in 10 years. And when that actually, it was astounding.
Yeah.
It felt like we won the lottery like every month.
Yeah. And again, that's a good feeling. And it's interesting how some people are resistant to that. And that goes back to having been beat over your head that you don't want to give up your mortgage because you need the tax, benefit off of it. Or so it's if you suddenly have, if your mortgage is $1,000 a month and suddenly you have $1,000 a month available, until you find something else to maybe not necessarily spend it wisely on, that's a good feeling. I know years ago you used to hear about, well, you had mortgage burnings, when they paid off the mortgage. You don't hear that much about it because people are saying, well, we need to have the deduction. But again, it's a good feeling not to have to pay something like that.
Yeah, I really, I think, what is it, Jim, that you think that we have? Do you think there's been a culture change in how we see sort of what we deserve to have? Like I deserve and need to have the latest iPhone, or I deserve or need to have a certain kind of car. I mean, do you think that's the kind of stuff that's driving our debt?
It's possible, up until the early 2000s. You hear the different financial advisors saying, oh, you just put money here because, hey, the stock market has historically returned 12% since the Great Depression. And, they, even though nothing in nature travels in a straight line, they didn't emphasize the ups and downs so much. Well, then 2008 hits. And even before that, you had the tech bubble, but the 2008 mortgage thing seemed to really drive things home that, maybe things aren't as much of a given as we thought they were. And maybe the market doesn't go up 12%. In fact, guess what? It went down 40%. And so that drove home that, maybe you need to do something different and save different and have a little bit of mindset. I'm not sure if that's totally different because the iPhones are still selling and what have you, but maybe that put the brakes on a little bit and saying, hey, maybe we don't need to have the latest upgrade or latest thing. Let's just pay off the first thing and go from there. But again, that's an individual thing, and as I say, your results may vary. So,
what do you think small business owners should be doing for 2019?
They should, if they haven't done it already, they really need to get with their accountant and everything. Find out what this new tax law might mean for them. And I do emphasize might, because my understanding is the law is written with gray areas and not too clear areas that even your accountant might not know. But if it's something your accountant isn't sure about, you really don't want to go there. So definitely, if you haven't done it already this year, hey, your accountant's not, killing his or herself, right now, because the tax season isn't here yet. It is a good time to get with them and say, hey, based on what we know about what the law is, what is changing as far as what we're able to deduct and, and this kind of thing. That's a key thing, because you don't want to come around, March, April timeframe and find out, ooh, this is nasty, and where are we now? So that's not a good time to find out. Now's the time to find out, and if you make small adjustments now, you don't have to, make the big adjustments later.
I think that's great advice. Well, Jim, I'm going to end it out there. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Jim, for being here on Bizapalooza Chat.
Well, thank you.
Excellent. Join us here each and every Monday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, Bizapalooza Chat. See you at the Twitter.